folks, it's Dr. Christine Sauer here with another episode of Sparkles for Better Mental Health. And today I'm excited to have Jenny Lytle on the call, a palliative hospice nurse. Jenny, I'm so excited to have you here. You're so much more than just a hospice nurse. So welcome.
Well, thank you so much, Christine. I'm excited to be here.
I'm very happy to have a human being on the call that actually has experienced a lot of people in their last moments. Mm-hmm. And I think you probably derived a few very interesting insights from that. And I can't wait to hear you talk about that too. But first, let me ask you, you are not doing hospice nursing anymore. Tell me why you became a hospice nurse. What made you passionate about nursing? And what made you now transition to be a podcaster, host, book author, and all the goodness online?
All right. So yes, I have been a nurse for 28 years. I know it's hard to believe, but but yeah, so for 28 years, I've been a nurse. 16 of that has been in hospice care. And I kind of got into that accidentally. I had a close friend whose dad was a man that was diagnosed with cancer, and then things changed very rapidly. You know, he was going through treatment, and then he started having some health issues, went to the emergency room, came home on hospice with 2 weeks to live. And it was a very non-medical kind of family. You know, they were not at all prepared for that. And I was not familiar with hospice, but I was fairly comfortable with, you know, some medical things. And so I went and kind of stayed with them throughout that journey. And what I found is that, you know, I was kind of introduced to this world of hospice, and it was amazing. You know, I loved that he was able to be there at home and have his, you know, his pain managed and stay comfortable. And the family was able to be, you know, a part of everything, and friends were able to come over, and, you know, he was still a smoker. And so he was able to, you know, go out on the porch and smoke like he normally had and do all of those normal things. And so that just really, really piqued my interest in hospice. And within about 2 months, I applied to a locally owned hospice and started working there. And then I was there for about 11 years. And then I really felt like I was being called in a different direction, left for a couple of years, then felt like God was kind of prompting me to go back. So I went back for a couple of years. And then I've done some inpatient hospice nursing, and actually I am getting ready to do just a short term, just a few weeks contract to kind of get a hospice over the hump. And yeah, I really loved everything about end of life care. But there were some things that, you know, that after a while that I didn't love so much, like the being out, you know, all hours of the night, and you know, weekends and holidays, because of course, you know, with medical things, there's not a lot of downtime.
Not at all.
Right. So yeah, and so then just kind of my own journey, my own struggles, and kind of some of the challenges that I was facing led me into coaching, and, you know, with really a focus on self-care and stress relief, because I saw so many people, both personally and professionally, that were really struggling with that, and with burnout, and just the, you know, the decrease in life satisfaction that came along with all of that.
Now, what do you think? Why do healthcare professionals and caregivers have such a hard time taking care of their own needs?
Well, I think that part of it is, you know, just in the busyness of the day-to-day caregiving that they're doing, you know, so whether that's professionally, you know, if you're a doctor, a nurse, an aide, you know, somebody else on a healthcare team, then you're very busy taking care of your patients. Or if you're a caregiver, you know, caring for a loved one, maybe at home, or, you know, helping take care of them at a facility, then there's so much time that goes into that, and so much energy. And especially if it's something that you're not really feeling comfortable with, then it's very challenging to figure out how to meet their needs and meet your own needs. And so, it kind of is a constant thing of, well, when I get done with this, or when I have time, then I'm going to take care of myself. And, we know how that works out. There's never
Time never
time.
comes.
Exactly. There's never the right time. And so I really try to challenge the idea that self-care is selfish, because a lot of people kind of have that thought. And, I believe that practicing self-care is the only way that we're able to really show up well and long term for those people that we do care about.
Right. Like if the glass that you carry is not full to the brim and overflowing, you serve from the contents of your own glass, and that will burn out fast. But if
Absolutely.
you serve from the overflow and continuously fill it,
Mm-hmm.
enough to give for years and years. And I think that's an important point why so many caregivers are getting burned out, and
Mm-hmm.
nurses and doctors. Do you agree with that, or what do you feel is the main reason that that happens more and more?
Well, I do. I believe that it plays a huge part in, in burnout and people just deciding, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to do something else, because, people generally get into healthcare because they have a heart to help others. And then that can be kind of exploited, and sometimes we do that ourselves or we let it happen. And that's kind of what I did. I had horrible boundaries. I found a lot of my identity in my work. And, when you're helping people, especially in a situation like I was in, where it's, people who are really struggling with, with all of the feelings that they have going on, and, all of these end of life issues. So of course, they're very grateful for someone who comes along and is able to, help them through that, and, share some insights and be there and be really supportive. And it's very easy to let that feed your ego. And that's kind of what happened. I wanted to do a good job for them, but then I started putting, things with myself on the back burner, and with my family as well. And when we take time to really focus on who we are and what we need, and have those clear boundaries of, what, hey, I can't work 60 hours a week. Somebody else is going to have to do this. Then sometimes that's not received real well, but it will be received well if we just kind of stand firm in that, instead of feeling like, I kind of felt like, well, somebody has to do it. And so I gave of myself a little too much, which led to, some resentment and just some total burnout, and I think as employers and as coworkers, we need to be supportive of people too, and, and really encourage our coworkers, our employees, to practice taking care of themselves. We all know that it's important. We all say, oh yeah, you got to take care of yourself. But then when it comes down to it, that's not always really reflected in the culture.
Yeah, you really need to take care of yourself, but please work Sunday night for me.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I understand. And
Mm-hmm.
then often as physicians, and I experience that myself, it's hard to ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
Very hard. Did you experience that in co-workers too?
Yes, I think that's, it's hard to, especially when we keep it so quiet. We kind of act like we're doing everything. We don't want to be the one that's complaining. We don't want to be the one that's rocking the boat, or that just can't do it all.
Mm.
And, the reality is nobody can do it all. And some people are much better at, at time management or at prioritizing. And so, I've learned since then that, those are not things that come naturally to me. I'm somebody that I can get caught up in the little details that don't matter quite as much, and kind of lose sight of the bigger picture. But there are people who are great at that. And so reaching out and just saying, look, I don't know, I'm not being able to manage this, but it seems like other people are able to. So, and find out either maybe they're not able to do it either, really. They just, hide it a little bit better, or maybe there are some tweaks that we can make that, that help us to be able to do the things that we're trying to do.
Now, you worked a lot with patients at the end of their life,
Mhm,
or let's put it bluntly, dying people.
mhm.
What special challenges do the caregivers and the families and the healthcare professionals face when they're dealing with patients at the end of their life?
Okay. So, there's definitely, yes, some unique challenges when you're talking about end of life. And especially, there's kind of two different issues. So some of the patients that I've worked with have been, at home with their families being their primary caregivers. And sometimes there are people who have, zero medical background. They've never done anything like this before. And, when hospice comes in, yes, we support and we help and we educate and, really try to empower them. But they're the ones that are there the majority of the time doing the day-to-day hard work. And so, there's definitely challenges with that, especially in people who maybe haven't felt confident in kind of their abilities, period, and so now we're throwing in this, really emotional and stressful time and trying to encourage and empower them.
Mm.
But also there's some issues of, we didn't all have happy childhoods. And so, maybe they're trying to care for someone that wasn't there for them in the ways that they wanted them to be. And so there's all of that gets all mixed up in it, that, maybe they want to take care of them, but there is some resentment or some hurt or some anger left over there. And so just, really helping them to understand that whatever they're feeling is okay. It's not, it doesn't make you an awful person if you still hold on to those hurts and resentments. And, there's a whole care team that's able to come alongside and help, address some of that and help you try to get some sort of resolution. But also realizing that, if this is something that's gone on for 50 years, we're probably not going to get it all tied up with a neat little bow in a few months. So that's definitely a big issue. And then also with, if it's somebody that it's either really kind of turned life upside down, this whole caregiving journey, and maybe it's been a long period of time or a short period of time. There can be so many variables with that, but ultimately it's not uncommon to feel a sense of relief when someone is getting close to passing or when they do pass. And a lot of people can really feel awful about that. I can't believe that there's a part of me that feels kind of glad that he's gone. But again, that's just very normal, because a lot of times people who are caregiving, sometimes they're also working full-time jobs or maybe taking care of, other people. They may be raising a family, working full-time and caring for this loved one, which means sleep is probably not happening the way it should. And so it's normal. And so, just being really open and honest and encouraging. And that's something that I always would kind of, tell my families when I was working with them, even if it wasn't anything that they had brought up, is just, hey, just so you may kind of feel a sense of relief. And that doesn't, that's normal. That doesn't mean anything bad, because some people don't even want to verbalize that. But there were times when I would have that conversation and would kind of see people visibly relax and be like, oh, okay, because we just feel like there's something wrong with us when we have thoughts like that.
Yeah, I can see that. And also, when you look at the healthcare worker themselves, many of them haven't really made peace with their own death. And
Hmm.
then being confronted with patients dying can be really leading to a personal stressor on the one side or a transformation opportunity on the other side. Have you
Yes.
experienced that yourself?
Yes. It's something that even as healthcare professionals, and some in hospice and palliative, end of life care, but even more so, just kind of healthcare professionals as a whole, we're not all prepared for death and dying. And, it's especially and I see this more at least in the US, I see this more with physicians in general. And of course, there's exceptions to everything, but I mean, you spend so much time learning how to save people and to fix things. And, I know that there's so many physicians that I've talked to that really almost see it as kind of like a personal failure. And, it's okay, well, there's nothing that can be done. And or they'll see it as giving up, and some families will see it that way too. And it's, yes, it can be seen as that, but kind of reframing that, it's just a refocusing on the priorities and what is it that you want most at this point. And there's some people who will never be ready for hospice care. I mean, they want to continue to fight and do everything as aggressively as they can until their very last breath, regardless of what that means, of, how weak they get, how, and that's absolutely fine. I mean, that's their choice. But there's also nothing wrong with saying, you know what, hey, I'm tired of fighting this, or I don't want to fight this. I mean, if they get a diagnosis that, okay, if we don't do anything, then it's going to end up in your death, or if we, maybe you have a good chance of survival, but maybe that's something, you just don't want to go through the treatment, or, it's just not worth it to you to do that, and you want to focus on quality versus quantity. And again, that's all fine. That's all, those are all very personal decisions with, that patients and families need to make. And they're not easy decisions by any means, but just, understanding that you don't have to do everything. But you can do everything if that's what you want to do, and I think sometimes just having that permission to understand that, just because maybe certain choices are being presented to you doesn't mean that you have to accept them. And, and families being able to have that conversation too.
Yeah, and Jenny, that is a wonderful thing. And I think, and I sense it from you, that being there for those who are at the end of their life and their families, at least for me, it brought me a deeper appreciation for life and the beauty that we can have, and the importance to use the little sparkles, as I like to call it, that we all have, because our time is numbered. Our sparkles, our days are numbered. Nobody knows how many we have.
Right.
And I know that, I think what you're doing now has blossomed out of this experience. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing now.
Sure. So now I work primarily with, mostly with women. I love men, have nothing against them. I'm not opposed to working with men, but just, women are kind of who gravitate toward me. And so women and caregivers who are just really kind of, struggling with that, fitting in self-care, or feeling like, oh, I'm going to get to that someday, or feeling selfish with that. And so I feel like women in general, and again, these are generalities, but women are often seen as caretakers in one way or 20. And then, especially women who are in an official caregiving role. And then, I happen to be a woman of faith as well. And when you add that in on top of it, that adds kind of an extra layer, because there's, we can feel like, well, I'm supposed to be, serving all of these people. I'm supposed to be helping all of them. And I absolutely believe that that's true. But again, you can only do that for so long if you're not taking care of yourself. And so it's not about being selfish. It's not about, taking care of yourself and just completely ignoring everybody else. It's, I believe that it can be a way that you can give more freely of yourself when you have that full cup. It's the oxygen mask on an airplane thing. You've got to put that on before you can take care of other people. And helping people to come up with a personalized plan for that, because that looks very different. What we do for self-care, just you and I, Christine, is probably very different from each other, and not a thing wrong with that.
And everybody does different. So tell me a little bit about that. What are the tools that are in your self-care toolbox?
Yes. So the first thing is being still. And that doesn't have to be an hour long meditation session, but just slowing down, even closing your eyes, just taking sometimes in the bathroom, if that's the only place that you can get a little bit of quiet time and uninterrupted time. But just kind of just sitting there and just closing your eyes and taking a few deep breaths and just asking yourself, what do I need right now? And I have these two questions that are here on my, here beside me on my desk, that when I start getting kind of stressed out and overwhelmed, where I'm trying to make a decision and I feel like I've got 20 things to do at once, then I'll ask myself, first of all, is this moving me closer to my goals? And sometimes the answer will be yes, and sometimes no. But then it's, what do I need most right now? And sometimes that may be, to go for a walk, or to, take a nap, or maybe get something to eat, if I haven't been eating. But, just those little check-ins with ourselves, because we can get so busy in doing the next thing, that we don't take time to think, okay, what is it that I really need? And that looks different in different seasons too. If you're a caregiver and you're taking care of someone who is completely dependent on you, or, if you're a parent with small children, then yes, you can't just leave the kids at home and go out on a drive if that's what you need to do. But, maybe you can make sure that they're safe, and, and go in the other room, or go out on the porch for a minute, where you can see them, but you can just kind of get a little bit of fresh air and a little bit of breathing room of your own. Or, maybe take the kids for a walk if that's something that you need. So, figuring out what it is that you really need the most, and then how can you fit that into your life? And, it may need to be, it may be that you need to ask somebody for help. And I know for some of us that is so hard. And we have a lot of friends maybe that will say things like, oh, well, if you need anything, let me know. And there's some of them who are just saying that because, that's what we say. That's like we all say we're fine when somebody asks, how are you doing? But there's a lot of them who really do want to help. They just don't know how. And so, maybe asking one of them, hey, could you maybe come over for an hour? Or maybe could you, help me do my dishes? It can be very practical things. I say self-care it's not all about spa days and beach vacations, which are wonderful, but it's so much more than that. And it's so much less than that at the same time. It's very simple things like, making sure that you're eating, prioritizing your rest, figuring out what it is that you're doing for yourself, emotionally and spiritually to replenish yourself, because you can't just give and not do anything to pour back into yourself.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So you have a method that you call the becoming method. What does it mean?
Yes. So the becoming method is basically it's an acronym that I've come up with because my company is becoming your best with Jenny Lytle RN. And because I believe that becoming is such a process, we're always on this journey to become ourselves. So the becoming method, it really, each letter stands for a particular thing, but basically it's kind of using the nursing process, and combining it into a way to look at, where are you now? Where do you want to go? And then how are you going to get there? And so it's just a way to, make things a little simpler and just kind of have a flexible framework so that when you're looking at designing your own self-care program, something that's going to be really good for you, or making bigger decisions in life too, then it's a way to be able to do that. And that's something that I kind of walk people through in my new guide that's available on my website. And it's just a free resource that helps people to be able to kind of work through those things, to see where they are, where they want to go, and how they're going to get there.
Now that's wonderful, Jenny. And I will make sure that not just in the video, but in all the podcast notes and so on, that link is included.
Thank
So
you.
before we wrap up, let us know in one sentence something that you want to tell the listeners before they log off. And then please share how they can find you if that's what they want.
Okay, wonderful. So one thing to share. So I would say that is take time to check in with yourself. And it doesn't have to be a long time. Set aside the shoulds and the way that you think you need to take care of yourself, and just figure out what you really need, and then do that first step. As far as reaching out to me, so my website is jennylytle.com, and that's JENNYLYTLE.com. And to get my 7 days to less stress guide, it is jennylytle.com/guide, and you can go on and get that and work through it. And definitely, if you have any questions or any insights, I would love to hear about them. So feel free to reach out to me and let me know if you do.
Absolutely. I recommend that guide. I looked on your website, there's a big button, start here. So click on that and you'll get the guide.
Yes, thank you.
I love that. Thank you very much, Jenny, for being on the show. It was a pleasure to have you as a guest. Of course, we could talk for hours and hours and hours, and maybe some other time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye, Christine.
So that was another episode of Sparkles for Better Mental Health. Make sure to tune in for the next episode. Bye-bye.